Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Saturday edition of our show. Once again, we appreciate you being patient with us as we had to set our sights and focuses on our full-time employment yesterday. Hence the delay in upload to you, but nevertheless, we keep our promise of keep on delivering 2 episodes per week to you to keep us all abreast on the happenings throughout A's Nation. I'm your host once again, Joe Grado. Today is Saturday, December 6th. We got a good show for you. With the winter meetings descending upon us, we're going to provide a little bit of a preview of what we can expect from the A's perspective and some discussions and conversations that they should be having with agents and teams in attempts to improve their roster for 2026. We'll do a little deep dive there. There was, with those meetings coming around the corner, there were some trade rumors circulating. There was an article that came out, I believe it was by ESPN's Jeff Passan, that listed Ketel Marte as a potential trade candidate and listed the A's as a potential suitable trade partner. So we'll dive into what that could potentially look like and how that would affect the overall outlook for the 2026 A's. And then we were given a glimpse into the future as it was announced earlier this week that the Las Vegas Ballpark experience, there's an exhibit that was on full display. Right now it is appointment only, but eventually will be an exhibit open to the public that gives the Las Vegas market an idea of what the 2028 ballpark will look like, the future home as intended for the A's once they move from Sacramento to Vegas. They give an idea into the different technologies. We'll give an idea of what is unveiled in that exhibit and what does it truly mean. We're going to have some interesting thoughts there. And then the A's continue signing some depth pieces to add right now to the minor leagues. I think this one is a prime candidate for that, as the A's did sign right-handed pitcher J.J. Goss, formerly from the Rays organization, to a minor league deal. We'll get to know him a little bit and what his outlook looks like for next season. And then, before we get on out of here, we'll continue on with this week's edition of This Player in A's History. We'll be sticking in the 2020s, and we'll talk about someone that's actually still an active player, but no longer a member of the A's. We're going to be talking about right-handed pitcher Liam Hendricks. Excited to be back here behind the mic talking A's baseball with all of you. Holy Toledo, let's go A's. All right there, A's Day fans. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Saturday edition this time. Hope you're all at the start of a wonderful weekend, just getting some time away from work. Whatever your plans are, enjoy them. Enjoy the little reset. Before we get into this show, we want to just give you a reminder of where you can find us. Aside from our podcast episodes that are offered 2 times a week on your favorite podcast platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify Music, Amazon Music, Podbean, iHeartRadio. I feel like I find a new platform that A's Day appears on. Wherever you like to listen to your podcast, continue to do so. Like, download, share it. We appreciate all of your support as we grow this thing to new heights as one collaborative family. In addition, be sure to check out our social media channels on Instagram at A's Day Baseball Podcast, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at A's Day Baseball, and be sure to follow along our YouTube channel. So if you want to watch the video edition of these episodes, they are available on our YouTube channel as well. It'll have the green logo, just like you see behind my shoulders if you are watching right now. We also have baseball A's player interviews and other baseball destination city content that we completed this past season and are continuing to do so in 2026. We'll be sure to have announcements on when you can catch some exciting new content on that channel. And be sure to become an official subscriber of A's Day. Be sure to check out our Patreon site, patreon.com/A's Day. For just $2 a month, you'll be entered to win monthly A's Day t-shirts, A's autograph memorabilia, future A's game tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. All right, let's get to our first topic of discussion today. And we're actually going to start with the trade rumor that is circulating before we get into our winter meeting expectations. So it's pretty clear, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, that the A's are in the market to either upgrade second base or third base. I don't necessarily think they'll dip their toes into both camps. I think they have enough depth that they feel confident. Like, for example, I feel like they have a high level of confidence in Max Muncy, but he has the capability of playing second base and third base. So I feel like if they can get an upgraded third, then they'll have Max Muncy stay at his primary position and play second, and then vice versa. I think they'll go with the better player available. And Muncy does have that flexibility that I do think he can flourish in both areas. I do like that dynamic of their baseball upbringings, meaning Muncy and Wilson. Having those two paired, they have that unique chemistry that many middle infielders, they build upon that and work upon that the more reps they got at the major league level. But these are two guys that have known each other for a long time and have that, I don't know, it's hard to describe, just that extra layer of continuity with one another that I don't think it could be taught. It just naturally happens with those two playing up the middle during their high school days. So that's just one point. But I think in this situation, here's an interesting rumor here. There was an ESPN article that came out written by Jeff Passan. He gives the Arizona Diamondbacks a 40% chance of trading second baseman Ketel Marte. Now, if you're not familiar with Ketel Marte's game, we'll be sure to get you up to speed. We understand this is an A's podcast. Probably have talked about it more on our Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players podcast. No shameless plug there. But anyway, this article, it really caught my eye because Marte, it seems at this point in his career is a perennial all-star and would slot in wonderfully at the top to middle of this order. And the fact that there were some fits that the A's were included, I think there would be an abundance of teams vying for his services. And I think what matters here is the team that would line up the best, since this would be a trade partner as compared to a free agent signing. So Jeff Passan also did say the following teams were named as potential fits as a trade suitor: the Pittsburgh Pirates, the San Francisco Giants, the Seattle Mariners, Kansas City Royals, and the New York Mets. So I think it seems like this is an area that is either going to grow more steam next week. I think that's the consensus here. I think there's going to be a pretty clear understanding how serious the Arizona Diamondbacks are about trading Marte. I think once these teams and agents and connect at the winter meetings, I think we'll have a better idea how serious they are. So I think this is kind of just a wait and see. But definitely an exciting rumor, because bringing a high-profile bat like that to Sacramento would definitely turn some heads and would lengthen what stands to be already a top 10 offense. So that would be fantastic. And for the level of productivity that Marte provides, at least offensively, because we'll get into the defensive metrics a little bit. It's nothing that's dire, but it's nothing that's going to move the needle. But most importantly, in terms of the business side of things, that financially for what he produces, it's relatively team-friendly. He is owed $91 million over the next 5 years. I know you're thinking about that. That's no chump change. But a team like the A's, they have been quoted, especially from GM David Forst, that there is going to be an increase in payroll, and you do have that flexibility. I mean, currently being down in the 40s, you have a lot that can still be distributed. And I know last year, I think they ended up in the high 60s, something like that, maybe low 70s with payroll. But I think there's more room to grow there. I mean, you're a professional organization, and if you want to support and complement this team that I think is knocking on the door of that turnaround, the start of something that could be special with this young developing core, I think adding a veteran back like Marte, this would be some good money to invest in. Marte is just owed $15 million and $12 million over the next 2 seasons. His salary then goes up to $20 million in 2028, followed more by 2 seasons of $22 million in 2029 and 2030, before the player option kicks in 2031, which is only an $11.5 million option. And I know by then he would be more advanced in his career, but that's still, if you can get what you can get out of those first 5 years of that contract, you're almost paying for what he did. Because I do think he'll still be mostly productive during that stretch. I think his style of play as a hitter is going to age well all in all. So $91 million, like I mentioned, no chump change, right? But that's over 5 years, and the A's have it. They don't have a ton of money tied up into anyone. Their biggest free agent contract was Luis Severino, and from the grand scheme of things, I know all in all, like you bring in your ace to make a certain amount of money, but being sub 20 million, I believe he's sub 20, or right around 20 or 21 million. Actually, I'm thinking. is still at the lower end of a starting pitcher market. But if that's the biggest contract you have, think about it. You have already done internal candidate extensions with Rooker and Butler to, I believe they're getting a little bit under their, well, especially Rooker, I think, is getting a little bit under market value. I think Butler still has time to make or break that 7-year contract. But I do think you have a lot of guys on their rookie contracts. This is the time that you add to the payroll, you make these trades, you bring in free agents because you have that financial flexibility. When you kick it down the road, that is at the time when these guys are more developed. You may have more financial resources tied up into less guys on the team. So now is the time that I think you spread the wealth and bring in some high-quality guys to, provide some veteran leadership, but also provide a little bit of thump to support whatever was missing last year. And on the pitching side, too, as well, you bring a veteran bona fide ace-type arm or a 1 and 2, something like that. There are still some big fish available out there in the free agent market. But getting back to Marte here, he's been the best hitting second baseman in baseball, putting up a 145 WRC plus, which is 45 points above league average, and 13% better than second best last season. And he was clearly the best offensive second baseman. That said, like I had hinted at earlier, his defense was roughly around league average past season at a +1 outs above average OAA. Still, the best ace second baseman defensively was utility man Max Schumann, who was a +5, followed by Zach Geloff, who was a +2. Then there was Darrell Hernandez, which was a -3. He primarily spent a lot of his time, especially in the second half of the season, at third. Max Muncy was -4, and Luis Urias was -3. So, from that perspective, from what the A's currently have, I think bringing in a guy like Marte, they'll bring in a guy with a +1 OAA who is going to give you elite offensive performance at second base. I think that's a deal they're certainly willing to make. And Marte, if he does get brought in at age 32 to this A's club, he would come in as the second oldest player on the team, only behind backup catcher Austin Wynns. So I think it would be really useful for this A's team to bring in someone like that. Because I think you saw the A's maturation process happen in front of our eyes in terms of their plate discipline increasing as the year went on, and them just learning how to win games at a more consistent clip, especially from the middle of June on. Now, I think bringing in someone like Marte, yes, he has 5 years left in his contract. So that says, okay, he's 32 now. You'll have him signed through his age 37 season. Is that the most ideal? Not necessarily. Having an older middle infielder, typically defensively, that's not going to age well. But like I had mentioned, I do think that the offense, his style of game, he does have that power, but he does also have that short, compact contact swing that I think is going to age very well, like I had also hinted at early. So I think, is it worth taking the leap? Yes, because I think what you're going to have to pay out there on the open market in terms of future free agents at second base may surpass that. But then also for having an all-star type caliber second baseman available via trade, and it's most likely going to take a prospect package. Your farm system is pretty deep right now. And I think if you're going to part ways with some pieces, it's someone that's going to make an immediate impact now, and I think can make an impact at least 3 years from now too as well. So I love this move personally. I think I got excited. I know it's just a rumor, so definitely keeping it all 6 out of 10 perspective, like right around that median. But I don't know. I think there might be some questions there. Like I said, I think one of the areas of discussion was wanting to improve this team's defense. Does this necessarily do this? No, I think it kind of keeps things status quo. But having that veteran, maybe he has a little uptick in performance, taking a lead as a veteran on this club. I think the benefits outweigh the cons, because I think he also would be a good ear that a lot of these young guys to catch, to be able to listen to Marte, how to be a professional hitter, and to be able to do it for such a longevity of time. So the one hurdle here would be basically you're admitting you're punting on Zach Geloff, whose status right now for opening day is uncertain after he did dislocate his shoulder at the end of the season against Pittsburgh. So it was in the midst of an injury-plagued year, and unfortunately, it just hasn't panned out yet. I feel like you see like little moments of potential where you think that breakout is coming, but then it seems like he gets a little bit overwhelmed with Major League pitching. because he went on some heck of a tear at AAA when he was making his way back. I think he hit don't misquote me, but I think it was 6 home runs in 4 games, something like that. It was some hot hitting like that it looked like that he was putting it together, but you just do wonder if he just needs more of that consistency at the major league level, maybe having a more refined approach, because it seems like it all connects at AAA. So it's not the part of physically getting to the baseball. I do think it may come with mental approach at the big league level, because it looks like almost night and day at times in terms of the type of player that Geloff is. But I do think he has battled some injuries in his young career so far, and I think from what I've seen, it's just a little bit up and down. So I think in this situation, this wouldn't be the worst case scenario in the world. Do I think Geloff can still be a productive major league player? Yes, I just haven't seen enough to be convinced that it would happen here. So I think in this scenario, you pull the plug, you make the deal for the trade to bring in Marte, and now I think because of how young Geloff is, he may simply benefit from a new environment, getting a fresh start, and being able to create a new professional baseball identity with a new organization. Because there would be plenty of teams, I feel like, that would take a flyer on Geloff. So that could be an opportunity for you to make a trade or include him in a trade to potentially increase your pitching depth. So I think that's another reason, too, why I like this Marte deal, because I think it would open up the doors to diversify your team a little bit and open the doors and have more of a willingness to explore all avenues to improve your club. Because I think if you hold on to a guy like Geloff, that is someone that may be intriguing as part of a deal that can help you improve your pitching, that could limit you in that one area. And I'm not saying that if they don't land Marte that you punt on Geloff anyway, but I do think there are internal candidates. I think there are still other options that they're going to explore over the winter meetings, not to get ahead of ourselves, that I think they are going to look primarily to improve second base. Because I do think you can slide guys over the third. We'll see what happens, though. In my opinion, my thoughts here, this is an upgrade. What would it take? It would probably take a prospect package of Net, Bolt, Hoagland. Unfortunately, you may even have to part with Max Muncy, too, as well, because I do think they would want a major league ready second baseman to slot in there. I'm not 100% familiar with what Arizona would have on the return in terms of from their farm system. Maybe they would go out and search on the free agent market or seek an additional trade themselves. But I could see a Muncy or a Geloff being included here. I think one of those two they would view, and they probably would prefer Muncy just because he's cleared and ready to go full tilt for the season as compared to Geloff. It seems like it's going to be some rehab time that he's going to need during spring training, so his status isn't 100% clear for opening day. Granted, if they have the Diamondbacks someone internally they feel can slot in right away, then maybe you take a chance on Geloff that they can develop him into a consistent major leaguer. But I think this opens the door so many pathways for the A's, and I think it'll signal to the league that they mean business, that they are ready to get back to winning ways and field a roster that can have this team in the postseason hunt. So I love it. I'm not sure. Is it going to happen? I would, on that list, I'll go back. Who did they have? So with the A's, they had the Pirates, the Giants, the Mariners, Royals, and Mets. Out of that list, I would probably have them most likely right in the middle. I'd say third, fourth maybe highest chances. I just think with some of what I think the A's can offer a pretty attractive package. So maybe I'd say third, but I just think teams I feel like potentially the Mariners, Royals, even Mets could be a better fit. I doubt San Francisco, and you never know. I think it depends on the package that they could provide, but I think typically San Francisco would probably be last on that list just to try to avoid an interdivision trade. They both compete in the National League West, so that's why I'd have them a little bit lower, but that would be a great fit for the Giants. So very intrigued. I'm sure that's going to be a topic of discussion next week, and looking forward to tracking along, and hopefully we are having a future episode talking about Ketel Marte getting traded to the A's, because I think this is a trade that has in-between-the-lines effects off the field, and I think can provide a solid foundation for the future. All right, speaking of that first topic, we are going to slide right into our next area of discussion. What are the expectations for the A's heading into these winter meetings? So, the A's, they're coming off a campaign. We understand they fell short of their expectation of making the postseason. finishing at 76 and 86, which was good, however, for 7 more wins than the year before. Now, the problem that they ran into was that May-June swoon that we are all too familiar with, where they lost 20 out of 21 games. You cut that in half, they're much more firmly entrenched in the postseason run. It happened. Nevertheless, I think it helped the A's learn how to win from there and come together as a group, because it seemed like guys were pressing, trying to do too much at that time, and it really dug themselves into a hole they couldn't climb out of. So they ended the season on a high note, finishing 6 games above 500 post All-Star break. You want to see them take that momentum into 2026. So where are they going to start? So we already kind of talked about it, so we're not going to dwell on this, but they got to talk to Ketel Marte's camp. Seeing that rumor circulate, you got to offer, or you at least have that conversation, take the initiative. Someone like that, there's going to be plenty of teams vying for Marte's services. What's it going to take? You got to explore that fully. But I think that leads, you got to upgrade second base or third base. You do have a group of guys that are going to be vying for both of those spots that I think are interchangeable at second or third base, like I've mentioned already. But I do think there are options out there in the market that could line up as potential trade partners, and you got to even explore the free agent camp too as well. Like, I would love for them to talk to the Phillies about Alec Bohm. Like, if he is truly available, he's not necessarily someone that's going to move the needle in a tremendous way, but this is a former All-Star. He is someone that provides maybe a little bit more stability at third base than you have currently. Nothing against Darryl Hernandez, but I think he's a solid utility player that can rove 3 different infield positions if you need. So I do think there's a need for that on that team. But at third base, I would love someone that is a bona fide starter. Alec Bohm, when he's right, is a doubles machine. And I do think you would see an uptick in his offensive power too as well, playing at Sacramento, which was the second most hitter-friendly park in all of baseball. I would love to just explore that, just see what that would take. Have that discussion with the Phillies. That's just one example. Like, I just want to see, have those legit conversations, because I do think the A's are facing a little bit of an uphill climb, because there was a players poll that voted the A's as the least desirable organization to go through. And I know there's been a lot of turmoil from them leaving Oakland, now being in this temporary home before they move on to Vegas. So with that uncertainty, I do think they're kind of in this baseball purgatory right now. But I do think they do have the right people in place at the baseball operations level that I think want to do this the right way. And it's just going to take that time for them to build up that reputation. So this could be a good offseason, and this could be a great place to start with these winter meetings to show good faith. And I think if the A's show that good initiative moving forward, that they want to do baseball business and they want to improve their club, but do it the right way too as well, this is a great place to start. So I think have those discussions about second or third base. Building up that reputation is going to be important too as well across the league, because you don't know how much trust there is there. Like I said, it's been a kind of a little topsy-turvy over the last few years. And I think the A's need to continue to explore the closer role. You're seeing guys come off the board. Emilio Pagan returned to Cincinnati. So now you're down to some of the big fish left. Edwin Diaz is still out there. Robert Suarez is still out there. You may have to go out there and potentially land a trade too as well. But this should have been starred. I guess some of these guys have moved a little bit earlier than expected to as well. I love what the A's did as a conglomerate once they had to perform post-Mason Miller trade. But nevertheless, I do think that is an area for 2026 that can really help revamp the bullpen and give them a new identity, being led by someone that is that bona fide closer. So have those discussions too as well. I don't know how realistic someone like bringing in Edwin Diaz would be. To me, I think he's going to be a Met or a Dodger, if I had to be completely honest. But I do think there could be some area to try to land Robert Suarez's services. Like I said, I do think there would be some desire from the Padres to bring back Suarez. But nevertheless, I don't think they're going to empty their bank account, because they do have Mason Miller under contract. So that would just make an area of strength even stronger like they had this past season. So I do think there may be some teams that show a little bit more want for Suarez, and I think this is an area where the A's can swoop in surprisingly and maybe make a deal with one of the best closers in all of baseball. So we'll see what that looks like, but I definitely think they need to have those discussions. A's have to be up front with what they have too as well. Like, I do think they need to make it clear that they are loaded at the major league level and at the farm system with their outfield core. So outfield group. So with that, I do think that opens them up as a potential trade partner with some teams like the Cincinnati Reds that are looking to add some outfield assistants. The Dodgers are looking to improve their outfield. So I think with teams like that, you got to explore how are they going to line up as trade partners. I think Cincinnati has some good young arms. That could be a deal with the Reds and A's lineup and be pretty suitable trade partners. Dodgers, are loaded with prospects in their farm system, but they have talent too as well. They're looking to improve their outfield. Kind of have those meetings at the winter meetings and see if they line up as potential trade partners. Don't have specific candidates in mind in terms of who they would bring in, but I do think there are going to be players out there that the A's can make some deals with besides exploring the free agent pathway, because at the end of the day, I think there are going to be opportunities right there for them, but they got to be more proactive than they typically are this time of year. Some prospects that you might be hearing in some deals, and we've mentioned them in previous mock trade scenarios too as well. Guys like Colby Thomas, who flashed brilliant power and a rocket for an arm last year. Some inconsistencies with his overall game, but I do think he is that raw talent that has the opportunity to flourish and continue to develop. I do think he's someone that would be sought after. Henry Bolte and Ryan Lasko, who are both top 20 ace prospects, I believe are going to be sought after in some sort of deal for pitching. And then there have even been mentions that teams were interested in Tyler Soderstrom's services. I doubt that would happen. I think the A's, especially with how young Soderstrom is coming off his first full season completely putting it together, I think they're going to want to see more of that in the middle of their order. So I doubt, unless it was the most ideal trade and it's something that blows them out of the water, I think that's the only way you would see Sodi go. But that's kind of the names you're going to see floated around in some rumors. Wonder what it's going to take for the A's to get some deals done. Also with that, the Rule 5 draft is coming up next Wednesday. Some notable players. This is just some other discussions that I'm sure they're going to be occurring around the winter meetings. That's why the Rule 5 draft is scheduled for when it is. But for the A's, some guys that were not protected were A's catcher Daniel Susac, who's their number 11 prospect. You got to hope that they're able to retain him, because to me, he was going to be in a battle with Wins to be the backup catcher. And maybe Susac eventually would be the full-time catcher. But obviously with how young Langoliers is, I'm sure that's why they felt a little bit more comfortable not protecting him as compared to the guys they did select from being selected in this Rule 5 draft. So very interesting there. Some other guys that are going to be open to being drafted on Wednesday are Kenya Huggins, number 23 prospect. He's a right-handed pitcher. They got him in the deal from Cincinnati when they traded away Miguel Andujar. And then first baseman Brennan Malone is also susceptible to being drafted in this Rule 5 draft. He's the A's number 26 prospect. This is an area, like I mentioned, how they're normally quiet in the trade market and free agency. But they're pretty active in the Rule 5 draft. The last most notable selection was when they selected right-hander Noah Murdoch, who made the club's opening day roster as a reliever before he was returned to the Royals later in the season after he was designated for assignment. So they would hold the A's the 8th selection this year's Rule 5 draft. However, they are going to have to clear a roster spot before December 10th because they are at the maximum 40 on the roster. If that is how they entered the Wednesday draft, they won't be eligible to make a selection. So, my thoughts, do something. I'm very excited to see what direction this team goes in. And I think there's a lot of positive momentum. Keep it going, baseball operations team. David Forrest, get busy and supplement this exciting roster. Because I think you saw a team really learn how to win together over the second half of the season. And I think them getting adjusted into a new home that transitioned from Oakland to Sacramento, I think year 2 from these guys, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable and feel a lot more home in Sacramento. So I think this is the year you want to start building those foundational principles. I think this is a team, you have a team here, you definitely have enough offensively. If you add some depth on the pitching side, add that veteran bat, like a Ketel Marte via trade, I think you're going to be excited to see what the potential of this team truly can be in 2026. And I know, winning 7 more games the last year, if they did that again this year, they would probably still be on the outside looking in. But you can assemble a team that can at least make this team play some meaningful September games. You want to start giving these young guys a taste of what that postseason run and chasing a spot in the playoffs or a title, whatever your situation may be. You want to start getting these guys into meaningful games. And like I mentioned, this is a team that has a lot of talented guys under very team-friendly deals. This is the time you need to make your moves before a lot of these guys get priced out on the open market. Go for it sooner rather than later. I think you have a group that's hungry to win. This is a group that's tight. They play for one another. I think you add a couple, like I said, one veteran bat and continue to revamp and really get going on revamping that bullpen. Add a starter or two. You're going to really like what you see, especially in the American League West. That really outside of Seattle, there's a lot of question marks. So I do think there's an opportunity to win some games in division. We all know what the Angels are going to be like. Houston, they should be decent again, but they're kind of in a weird spot where they're aging at some parts of their roster. I know they are kind of a baseball factor with their farm system, but Houston ain't the Houston, in my opinion, that they once were. And like I said, I think Seattle's going to be solid again, but not unbeatable. So I think there's an opportunity to get significantly better. And David Force, go to work. Go to work. Make this team better than it was this episode. Like, I want to have a talk next week, maybe 2 weeks from now. A's did this. A's, or at least being involved in some rumors where there's going to be some signings the end of this month or January. But I don't just want it to be a one-year guy here, minor league depth here. Like, I want to see some significant movement. Give me a couple moves. Give me a couple moves. I get real excited for 2026, especially if you do it in the right areas. Because you can't just do it just to do it. But you want to make sure that it's improving the club for the 2026 season and setting yourself up to have that sustained winning culture return to the A's organization. So I'm excited to see. I'm sure we'll be taking a deeper, close look at it on Monday and throughout the week. For the winter meetings, we'll discuss the results of the Rule 5 draft too as well, because the A's do seem to be rampant there. But they're going to have to clear a spot first. But I do think this is a really important offseason for the A's. I think this could be a turning point for them. I want to see what discussions they engage in. I want to see what moves come out of winter meetings all in all. But all in all, it needs to be something of significance. I don't want these rental flyers, one-year deals. I don't want these swap for a take-a-chance guy. I think we've done that. I think we've seen some depth pieces added, which is good. But now it's time to get some Major League ready guys that can help add some wins to this ball club. All right. Now, let's move along to a topic that occurred off the field. A's fans were treated to an inside look at what the new $2 billion stadium will look like in Vegas for 2028. So the A's have officially opened up their ballpark experience in Las Vegas for potential fans of the team to come and get a first look at what to expect in 2028. So it's called the A's Las Vegas Ballpark Experience. It highlights the model of the ballpark set to be constructed on the Strip, along with the 3D look inside from the pitcher's mound, which allows visitors to look around the ballpark as though they're standing on the field. So a lot of that, it seems like almost like a virtual reality sort of thing. It's meant to entice potential season ticket holders in the area and get them acquainted and get them familiar with the A's in Las Vegas as planned supposed to be in 2028. Seems like there's a lot of cool areas for photo ops, and I'm sure you're going to see some influencers stop by there. I'm sure the next time that if we're in Vegas, maybe checking out the Aviators, we'll be sure to check out the ballpark experience too as well and highlight for you, the lovely audience. That would be something unique to check out. It's now open right now currently. I think I mentioned this before. It's open by appointment only at the moment, but eventually they are going to open it up to the general public. I'm sure they're just ironing out maybe some of the final last details for it to be a open public exhibit. It's located at the heart of the space in the immersive cube, where more than 28 million pixels transform the room into a 270-degree canvas of motion and energy. So they don't just see the A's future, they get to actually step into it, exploring the new ballpark in vivid dynamic 3D. So they're going to be able to also experience, I guess, they have some models, or they have some exhibits on display of some A's memorabilia, some art, the iconic elephant mascot is represented through the elephant in the Great Elephant Migration, linking the team's rich history to its future. It's a traveling art exhibit, and it's going to be. It features 100 life-size elephant sculptures crafted by artisans in southern India. So there is a full architectural model of the future ballpark, which was completed by Model Works AJT, which they are a Las Vegas-based model making company known for its craft-driven presentation of models. So it is the way they complete their business. It brings it to life in a realistic fashion. It's scaled to realistic size. So it's going to show the preview of like the seating options, fan zones, and other features of the ballpark that you're going to be able to experience in person in a few years. There also is a clubhouse themed area that has the 8 of the club's 4 World Series trophies on display. So that's a little inside look into the Las Vegas ballpark experience. What does it mean? I don't know. They keep throwing this stuff out there in the public to bring about some publicity to it. Is it real or is it a smokescreen? It kind of leaves me wondering because everything we're getting, it's virtual. We're getting, yes, video updates of construction sites, but it's bits and pieces. Do they have the funding in place? Or is this just stalling to something bigger? There have just been a lot of red flags that continue to pop up. Some discussions with Clark County, I believe it was, where there just seemed to be some differing opinions on what funds were allocated and available for the structure of, or for the construction of this new stadium. The value of the stadium continues to increase. Now it's $2 billion. I swear there was another article that said 4 or 1. I'm not sure, but it seemed like it was something different than what it is now. So the story, the narrative seems to continue to change. Now, they do have a model built to size, to scale. So there's a vision. There is a plan in place. I think that's true. Can't debunk that. Can't argue that. Do think the plans are in place, but are the plans fully in motion? Are the financial resources in motion? Or is this just delaying to the point we get to the deadline, which I would have to envision it being some point in 2027, to announce that the Vegas ballpark would be ready by opening day of 2028? Is it going to happen? I'm not fully convinced. I'm just not. I love this ballpark experience. Like, I think it's great. Like, if this is actually going to go through and happen, and I think giving the fans and that new market an opportunity to grow accustomed to the A's, because there hasn't been a Major League team there. So I think getting people out there excited for Major League Baseball being there is a great idea. And I think it's good to have a full vision into what the expectations are. But there's just something there that feels like something ain't right. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm sure we'll continue to monitor the developments. We even talked to my dad about it. He feels the same exact way, that he's booked it, that he's convinced that they're definitely not going to go there. I'm not sure if I'm all the way on that side, but if I had to pick a side, I'd be leaning closer to that than it actually going through. And can't put my finger exactly quite on it. But it just feels like they're going to end up potentially somewhere else. That could be wrong. And they could get this figured out, and there's still definitely enough time. But just the way the information has been distributed, and just getting this, and to me, just getting this virtual experience, it almost seems like they're trying to make it the reality a little too real. And I do know there is access to new technologies. I know the stadium is going to be featuring so many new technologies in the stadium that we haven't witnessed before. So, yeah, I hope, all plans stay on schedule. And for the A's sake, for the players' sake, I hope that if this is their plan to be in Vegas in 2028, then I hope there's no hurdles. Because you want these guys to be able, for the sake of their own well-being and for the well-being of their families, to be able to have that plan in place. Okay, we're going to be here in Sacramento through the 2027 season, and then we're going to have a place to move into in Las Vegas, and we're going to be there on time, ready to go, kickoff opening day, and that's where we're going to be for the long term. For that sake, I hope it happens, but wouldn't it be something if we were right about it? But at the end of the day, if this is where the A's are going to end up, then I think it's a cool exhibit to check out, so you can get an idea of what you can expect from a team in a new home, a new area, They'll be right in the neighborhood of the Raiders. They'll be reunited out in Las Vegas. We'll see if it happens, though. But go check it out. I'm sure we will, just to see any avenue of A's baseball. We'll be sure to share it with you. If we find ourselves in Vegas in the near future or anytime, we'll be sure to share our findings for sure. And maybe it will change our perspective as well on this whole situation too as well. Maybe getting the opportunity to see it up close and personal will give us a full vision of, oh, okay, I see the full vision in that. There is a pathway for this to definitely get done. But time will tell. We'll be sure to update you if there's any more news on this topic. All right, let's talk about the latest minor league contract the A's have inked for depth in their minor league system. A's signed right-handed pitcher J.J. Goss. This signing occurred this past Thursday. He was originally selected by the Rays back in 2019. Spent the 2025 season at the Rays AA level as a pitcher for the Montgomery Biscuits. Over the 2025 campaign, he appeared in 33 games, pitching to a 4-3 win-loss record with a 3.38 ERA, striking out 31 batters in 40 innings pitched and a 103 whip. He'll be turning 26. Fun fact, his birthday is on Christmas. He's made only for his fastball slider mix, I think gearing up to somewhere between 96 and 97 miles an hour. Another depth piece for the future here. That's the loan transaction that the A's have conducted since the last time we discussed any upcoming transactions. The A's have been rather quiet, which is why I am hopeful that they are going to get down and busy at the start of the winter meetings and beyond for the duration of this offseason. Most likely, Goss is going to be starting this campaign at AA Midland. All right, let's take a quick break to thank one of our supporters before we wrap up with this week's edition of This Player in A's History. Back after this. Welcome to Mesa, Arizona, a destination for every season. Experience a destination where adventure, culture, and culinary experiences are limitless. As the gateway to the stunning Sonoran Desert and Tonto National Forest, Mesa invites you to explore its scenic waterways, kayak through winding canyons, or paddleboard along the Salt River. For a one-of-a-kind desert adventure, ride the waves at Revel Surf at Cannon Beach, the country's first surf park of its kind. Downtown Mesa is a vibrant hub, home to the Mesa Art Center, public art, award-winning breweries, and local shops. Food lovers can explore the Fresh Foodie Trail and the diverse flavors of Mesa's Asian district. Sports fans can experience MLB spring training with the Chicago Cubs and Athletics, or visit one of North America's largest youth sports complexes. As the world's first autism-certified city, Mesa is dedicated to accessibility and inclusivity for all visitors. All right, let's get to our last topic of discussion, which we are going to continue on with our series of This Player in A's History. As promised, we are going to stay in this decade, in the 2020s, talking about someone that donned the green and gold, of course, talking about right-handed pitcher Liam Hendricks. Liam Johnson Hendricks was born and raised in Perth, which is out in Western Australia. He began playing T-ball in his youth when he was 5, rather than the traditional route of a lot of young boys in Australia that would play cricket, before he fully transitioned to baseball at the age of 10. He also played Australian rules football. He continued playing both football and baseball through high school at Sacred Heart College in Sorrento. In 2008, Hendricks would go on to pitch for Perth Heat in their successful Australian Claxton Shield Series and went 3-0 with a 1.90 ERA and 25 strikeouts, a competition high. He was named Rookie of the Year for that season. He returned for the Heat in the inaugural season of the Australian Baseball League. After starting the season posting 7 scoreless innings, over 3 outings, Hendricks endured a rough second half, posting a 6.49 ERA in 8 total games. From there, he decided to pursue baseball and was actually signed by the Minnesota Twins on his 18th birthday. The year prior, he debuted in the Twins organization in 2007, pitching for the Gulf Coast League Twins. He led the teams in strikeouts with 52. He was also named a Twins top 50 prospect. Fast forward to 2009, he spent the season with the Single-A Beloit Snappers of the Midwest League and the rookie-level Elizabethton Twins of the Appalachian League. Between the two teams, he went a combined 5-5 with a 3.55 ERA in 14 games. All were actually as a starter. He was selected to the 2010 All-Star Futures game, but developed appendicitis, forcing him to miss the game. On September 5th, 2011, Hendricks was called up finally to the major leagues from AAA Rochester. At the end of the 2011 season, he was named the Minnesota Twins Minor League Pitcher of the Year. He was an All-Star of the New Britain Rockcats in 2011 and named an organizational All-Star for Minnesota at the end of the season. He also earned his second invitation to the Futures game. After a successful spring training heading into the 2012 year, Hendricks was named one of the Twins starting pitcher for that year, earning a rotation spot. In September of that year, Hendricks earned his first major league victory in a 6-4 win against the Cleveland Indians. On December 2013, the Twins would go on to designate Hendricks for assignment after the signing of pitcher Phil Hughes. Hendricks was claimed off waivers by the Chicago Cubs that offseason. 10 days later, after being designated for assignment once again, he was claimed off waivers, this time by the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles then designated him for assignment on February 19th of 2014 to make room for Ubaldo Jimenez on the active roster. The Blue Jays then claimed him off waivers 2 days later, and he was optioned in March to AAA Buffalo for the Jays. He compiled a 5-0 record, Hendricks, with an ERA of 1.46 through 9 games, 7 starts for the Bison, before being called up to the majors on May 23rd of that season. He made his Blue Jays debut that day, picking up a 3-2 victory over, yes, that's right, the Oakland A's at the time. On July of that season, Hendricks, along with Eric Kratz, were traded to the Kansas City Royals in exchange for Danny Valencia. He was recalled from the Omaha Storm Chasers, their Royals AAA affiliate, on August 27th of that year to make a start for the Royals against his former team, the Twins. He would later be designated for assignment on October of that year when Moises Sierra was claimed off waivers. On October 30th of 2014, Hendricks would end up being traded back to the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Santiago Nessie. Hendricks, from this point, pitched exclusively out of the bullpen in 2015 and appeared in a career-high 58 games. He would pitch to a 5-0 record with a 2.92 ERA and 71 strikeouts in 64 2/3 innings. In the playoffs, Hendricks would go on to set a playoff postseason record, a record that had stood for 85 years. In Game 4 of the 2015 ALCS, after starter R.A. Dickey gave up 4 runs, Hendricks entered in as the long reliever and pitched 4 1/3 innings of scoreless baseball from the 2nd to the 6th and finished with 13 outs from 12 batters faced. That's where the history is. The record was previously held by Jim Lindsay, who previously held the mark of recording 8 outs from 7 batters he faced back in 1930 when he was playing for the St. Louis Cardinals. On November of that year, that's where our A's story begins. The Blue Jays traded Liam Hendricks to the Oakland A's for Jesse Chavez. Hendricks finished the 2016 season with a 3.76 ERA and 0-4 record, pitching 64 2/3 innings pitched in 53 appearances. In 2017, he pitched 64 innings and 70 appearances with a 4-2 record and a 4.22 ERA. The A's would designate Hendricks for assignment on June 25th of 2018 and sent outright to AAA Nashville. He was called up to the Major League Club on September 1st as a 40-man roster call-up. During the regular season, Hendricks appeared in 25 games with Oakland, pitching 24 innings with an 0-1 record and a 4.13 ERA. The A's used Hendricks as their opener in the 2018 AL wildcard game, becoming the first Australian-born player ever to start an MLB postseason game. In 2019, Hendricks took over full-time as the A's closer after an injury suffered by Blake Trinan and would go on to make his first career All-Star game as a replacement for Charlie Morton. He also earned the inaugural All-MLB second-team honors. Hendricks by far enjoyed his best season of his career at this point, finishing with a record of 4-4 and an ERA of 1.80 in 75 games, including 2 starts as an opener. He also recorded 25 saves while striking out 124 batters in 85 innings. Fast forward to 2020, he continued his era of dominance, finishing with a 3-1 record with a 1.78 ERA in 24 games during the 60 season-shortened COVID-led year. He recorded 14 saves and 37 strikeouts in 25 1/3 innings pitched. That would bring a close to his time with the Green and Gold, as on January heading into the 2021 season, once Hendricks entered free agency, he would sign a 3-year, $54 million deal with the Chicago White Sox with a club option for a 4th year. Hendricks would go on to be named the AL Reliever of the Month for May and September, the award he previously won with the A's twice during his tenure there. Hendricks earned the save in the 2021 All-Star Game held at Coors Field in Denver, locking down a 5-2 AL victory. Hendricks, in August of that year, was the first winning pitcher in Iowa during the Field of Dreams game, which was taking place against the Yankees. He actually blew a 7-4 lead in the top of the inning before the White Sox came storming back on a walk-off Tim Anderson home run to give the White Sox an 8-7 win and securing the victory for Hendricks. During that season overall, Hendricks appeared in 69 games, leading the American League with 38 saves and having a record of 8-3 with a 2.54 ERA and 71 innings pitched, leading all MLB relievers with 113 strikeouts. He would go on to win the AL Reliever of the Year award for the 2nd year in a row, joining Bobby Thigpen also as the 2nd White Sox pitcher to ever in franchise history win the award. Now, this is where it gets a little serious. Heading into the 2023 season, Hendricks had been announced that he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma stage 4 and was beginning treatment. A few months later, in April, announced that he was going to go through chemotherapy in treatment of getting rid of this cancer. Fast forward 2 weeks later from that, he announced that he was cancer-free, thank goodness. Stage 4 cancer has been beat in the process. So, with that, he started the 2023 season on the injured list as he was recovering from that cancer treatment. From that came some good, too, as well, as Liam Hendricks went on to donate $24,000 for the purchase of wigs for cancer patients at the Mayo Clinic. He made his 2023 emotional debut on May 29th of that year in the 8th inning against the Angels, proceeded to give up 2 runs, but it did not matter. That's not what that day was about. It was the fact that he overcame something so horrific to be able to get back to what he loves and what he's passionate about, and being able to count his blessings and get back onto a major league mound. I'm sure during that process, there are some doubts if that was ever going to be possible again, but nevertheless, he cleared that hurdle and made a dream back into a reality. He would go on to make 5 game appearances before being added to the injured list for elbow inflammation in June. During that 5-game stint, he compiled a 5.40 ERA, 2 wins and a save. On August, it was announced that he was going to undergo Tommy John surgery, missing the remainder of that season. He would become a free agent after the season once the White Sox declined his club option. In February of the following, heading into the 2024 season, the Boston Red Sox announced that they had signed Liam Hendricks to a 2-year, $10 million contract, immediately adding him to the 60-day IL with the Sox. He began appearing in minor league games as part of his rehab in August. And in September, Hendricks would go on to be named as the Red Sox nominee for MLB's annual Roberto Clemente Award. So he didn't appear in any major league action. He continued his rehab. And then in 2025, April 19th of this past season, Red Sox would activate Hendricks, allowing him to make his return from injury. In 14 appearances for Boston, he did struggle to an 0-2 record with a 6.59 ERA, with 12 strikeouts across 13 2/3 innings pitched. Unfortunately for him, in May of this year, he was placed on the injured list due to right hip inflammation, and then he was transferred to the 60-day injured list on July. Then September, at the end of this past season, he underwent ulnar nerve transposition surgery on his right elbow. And as he currently stands, Liam Hendricks is a free agent. The Red Sox declined his 2026 option, so now he seeks a free agent deal for the 2026 season. So thus far, that is the story of Liam Hendricks. In 14 seasons pitched in the big leagues, he has appeared in 490 games, 44 games started, compiling a 33-36 record with a 3.88 ERA and 663 2/3 innings pitched. He issued 166 walks, striking out 739 batters, a 1.20 whip, and compiling 116 saves. Of those 14 seasons, 5 of those were pitched with the A's. He appeared in 247 games, 10 games started with an 11-12 win-loss record and a 3.08 ERA. In 263 innings pitched, he issued 71 walks, racked up 332 strikeouts, and pitching to a 1.13 whip. So this, Liam Hendricks, I wanted to tell his story because this is the example of perseverance in a career. I mean, you can hear first just how long it took for him to get his footing in this league. Someone that was born abroad, had to find his way over here, getting signed by an international scout with the Twins as his foot into the door. But then it just seemed like a lot of areas, a lot of organizations that he had to prove it to. I mean, how about that one offseason where he's bouncing from organization to organization, designated for his assignment, claimed by an organization, designated for assignment, claimed by an organization. That's got to rattle a guy's confidence to some extent, even for the toughest of individuals. Because you don't know if it is truly ever going to stick, and you're just wondering when you're going to get that opportunity. And it really did seem to come to light. He really seemed to become to the peak of his powers during his time with the A's. And I think it just continued to show persevering forward and trusting in your overall game and what you can contribute to a team is going to make its way through eventually, especially if you're passionate about it. You're going to knock that door down one way or another. And I think with him assuming the closer role in 2019, you saw on full display what that pure emotion is. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He is one of the good guys in this game, but when he's between the lines, he's one of the most vicious competitors out there, and that's exactly what you want out of your closer. That's what I remember from his time with the green and gold, and then also with perseverance, more importantly, for what he had to endure off the field. With him getting diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4, that's got to be very frightening times for him and his family at the time. And I'm sure the competitor in him had baseball in the mind, but there were much more glaring issues, I think, were at the forefront of his mind at the time. I think just fighting for his survival, making sure that there's a way that he is going to be there for his family. But from the start of the diagnosis all the way through his treatment, he turned this negativity into a positive. He was always spreading a positive message that he was going to beat this and that he was making donations like to the Mayo Clinic and helping cancer patients, especially children, everywhere. Like he wanted to make sure that he was a consistent presence, as he always is, in the community, getting back and doing what he can to contribute to cancer research. So I think that was just a part of his story that you could see how quickly, in the grand scheme of things, sometimes when you're battling cancer recovery, it's going to take a longer extended period of time for you to be able to come back and get back to performing or doing what you were regularly, because those cancer treatments can certainly wipe a lot out of anybody. And I'm sure there were days that were very tough for Hendricks, but he just kept on pushing, forging through, and he made his emotional return after beating cancer in May of that year. So I just wanted to share his story. I'm sure a lot of you A's fans are very familiar with who he is, but if you're a newer A's fan, maybe it's just a name as compared to knowing the full story. So, and I think with him getting his feet underneath him at the major league level with the A's is what makes his ties to Oakland a little bit, and to the A's organization a little tighter than to some other guys that previously spent some time in the A's and are now competing for a different organization in this league. Like I mentioned, Hendricks is looking for a home. It's really curious to see where he does end up. It did seem like this past season, it's that first year after Tommy John that guys are really knocking off that rust and are essentially a shell of themselves. It's that second full year that they have their full bearings underneath them. And think about it. He's going to have a normal offseason now, not going to have to be focusing on just doing that Tommy John rehab. I think you're going to see a better version of Hendricks. I don't know if you're necessarily going to see him at what he once was at the peak of his powers, but I do think he is someone that could contribute and add depth to a bullpen, and maybe the more confidence and the more outs that he does record, that you are going to see that flame-throwing closer letting out that pure emotion, that rage, and again, in a good way, that we once saw with the A's and during his time with the White Sox for the most part too as well. So best of luck to Liam Hendricks. I'm glad we were able to tell his story today, and looking forward to, I'm sure we'll do a little bit of a mention of it once he does find a new home. Who knows? Maybe he does come back for Sacramento on a prove-it deal, and wouldn't hate to see him find, sometimes you got to go back home to find what that secret formula was to get you going again. So best of luck to Hendricks. We'll see where he ends up, and glad we were able to tell who he was during his time with the A's and throughout his major league career with you, the lovely audience. And with that brings us to a close to another edition of A's Day. We appreciate each and every one of you spending part of your day with us here, listening to our thoughts on everything going on in A's Nation. On today's show, we discussed a trade rumor that is circulating that Ketel Marte could be available, could be traded from the Arizona Diamondbacks. And in an article written by Jeff Passan, the A's were listed as a potential trade partner due to the prospect package that they could offer. We dove in a little bit to discuss what that could potentially look like. We gave our expectations from the A's scope and vantage point of what they should be doing during the winter meetings. I think this is an important offseason for the future of the A's for 2026, but also beyond too as well. I do think we covered some good areas of discussion there where they need to improve upon and really show that they do mean baseball business at the end of the day. Earlier this week, the Las Vegas Ballpark Experience model was released. There's an exhibit out in Las Vegas that gives an insight into what the new stadium is going to look like in 2028. We gave our thoughts on what that truly means. We think it could be a mirage, but we'll see. Like I said, I do think their vision plans are on full display, so let's see if we put their money where their mouth is. J.J. Goss is another minor league signing that went down on Thursday as the A's continue to add depth to their minor league. And then for this week's edition of This Player in A's History, we kept it in the 2020s and talked about former closer Liam Hendricks. We're going to be back on Tuesday as compared to Monday with the winter meetings kicking off this Monday. We don't want to cut off anything in case that the A's are active on that first day. I know the percentage chances of that are happening aren't necessarily the highest, but just in case something does come to light, we don't want to miss it. We want to talk about it as freshly as possible. So that's why we're going to be switching this week's show to Tuesday. We're going to talk about the first day winter meetings. If the A's got into anything, we'll talk about any other weekend transactions that may go on. I do feel like it would probably be quiet over these next couple days just to save it all for next week. And then we'll go from there. But we should have a good show for you on Tuesday. We're going to try to get that trivia up and running once again. We'll stay tuned for that. It would be some sort of like that Sporkle challenge that we did at the earlier on in A's Day. We'll see if we'll get that up and running. But nevertheless, we'll be back talking A's baseball with each and every one of you very soon on Tuesday. We're excited to do it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you once again. We appreciate all of your support. Continue to listen to us, download, like, subscribe wherever you can. Tell your friends, because the more that we are able to grow this audience, the more that we can grow A's Nation to new heights. A's Day, we're here for now, and we're here for the long haul. We are passionate talking about this young ascending team that the A's are going to be off and running for 2026 and beyond. That's all I have for you. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank each and every one of you for your support. We'll be back for Tuesday's show. Holy Toledo, let's go A's.